How do we make sense of the times when we've given everything that we have into a dream or a mission or a vision, and we feel called to it and we feel confirmed in it, and the whole thing just blows up? Well, those are the very questions I've been trying to ask myself here for years. And this is now podcast number 3 in the series. And I'm really, really thankful that you are here. And I want to go ahead and start explaining some of the things that I have learned here probably over the past 3 or 4 years. I'm really starting to make sense of a lot of the confusion, a lot of the anger, the disappointment that I had in my earlier days. So my name's Jason Owens. This is the Deepwater Labs podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. And again, for the disclaimer, I know some of my folks who watch this are more the standard typical corporate audience, and you're not really looking for faith-based material. So if that's not for you, then definitely you want to dive out of this and go find some of my other material. But for those of you who are more of the faith-based persuasion, then this is definitely the right place for you. I'll add one more disclaimer here. As I was preparing for this and going through and making some notes here for this show, I realized that I could make probably another 9-part series just on what I've uncovered here today. There's just so much depth that I can go into on each of those. So hopefully in the future, I will be afforded the time to be able to go back in and dig into some of these in a little bit more depth. So anyway, thanks again for joining me, and here we go. So when I look back on just how important church was to me in the past, church was the center of everything, right? So in my early days, and my wife and I married quite young, and we ended up going to church. It was very central to us. And over the years, probably somewhere around, maybe about 10 or 12 years into it, we had moved once. We were very far away from parents at that point. We're in a totally different town, building a life there. And just after a while, church just kind of felt like we were going through the motions, right? It was pretty dry. Rather than go into all the details, it was, we just weren't being, we weren't being fed, right? So, but we were still going through the motions, right? So we had a young one at that point. So family had expanded. So we had our child, and she was young at that point. So, we obviously felt like we were doing a lot of that to go through for her. And anyway, it was good knowing that, okay, we're doing this. We're getting our kid involved in children's church, and that felt good. Then we ended up moving again, right? So we had a couple moves thrown in there. Due to career and whatnot. And this most recent move, when we ended up landing out here out west, just the whole idea of church shopping just felt like a chore. My kid went through some pretty hard times in late junior high, early high school, and the idea of trying to get the kid to go to church would have been a forced issue, which was definitely not the right way to approach it. So we ended up not really pushing church there for a while. And in that time, what I noticed is that as the importance of church started to drop off, I noticed that my spiritual hunger never really subsided. My spiritual growth was really fueled a lot more by podcasts and books than attending a physical church body. And again, there are pros and cons to that. So I can't say that, hey, wow, this is the future and follow me in that path. I don't recommend it. But anyway, that I can just tell you that's what was happening to us there in the background. So again, we have all kinds of disappointments, all kinds of trying to understand where God is, trying to hear him. And my biggest confession in all this is that over 20, 25, 30 years of church going never really prepared me to be massively disappointed in my faith. Okay? Now, maybe I'm not alone in this. So here's one example. So we have a pastor who's going to stand up in front of the church, and he or she is going to say some words. And again, this actual example just happened not even 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was with Dad and visiting Dad and going to church with him. The pastor stands up in front, and we're on, we're in the, I don't know, week 3, week 4 of a series on dealing with anxiety. And the verse comes up about, you need to pray this particular verse, right? And he ended up putting a verse up there on the overheads. And if you pray this verse, it's going to help you with your anxiety, okay? I prayed it, and it helped me. Okay, so this is all the pastor talking. I prayed it, and it helped me. Now, I've been through that particular message probably a dozen times in all of my years of going to church, right? So I've heard the message before, and I've heard the claim. And here's where I fall down, is that every time I tend to believe it. I tend to believe that what these folks are telling me is, no pun intended, it's the gospel truth, right? But I haven't really found that praying for my anxiety helps me, okay? And it took me a long time to really dig into that, because, and that's just one of probably a dozen examples that I could give you of somebody in authority says, whether it's somebody who is a pastor or an elder or somebody who's leading a Bible study, says, hey, here's this thing, do this thing. I'm the authority figure, and please do this. It'll work for you. And not really feeling like it's working, either flat out doesn't work, or I really have to hold my head funny to get any level of satisfaction out of it. Okay, so it's like, really, right? So again, that's been rough on me. I found the idea that claiming verses over my life, right? So you've seen this before about whatever the verse is, okay? Whether it's, I know the plans I have for you, right? So Jeremiah, I've heard that one presented again from people in authority of, okay, claim this verse over your life, and things will start going well. Or if any of you lacks wisdom, okay, so going back to James, so I'll end up in some type of, usually it's some kind of a business scenario or something to do with finances or whatnot, and I'm trying to really figure out, okay, listen, I can either do this or I can do that. All right, God, tell me what to do. Okay, so again, it's going back to really that whole cycle of how I landed here in the first place. So the idea of claiming this verse over my life, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that. I really, really wish that I had. One thing that I did here, this is probably about 2 years ago. This really helped. This has probably been the number one thing that I can say that was probably the largest help to me, is I just went out to the local bookstore and just bought a blank journal. And I just said, this is going to be the journal where I'm going to sit down and convince myself that prayer works. So I'm going to start asking for stuff, and I would write it down. Whatever today's date is, and whether it was some verses that I prayed or a particular prayer that I found online, here's the prayer that I prayed, and then these are the things that I was asking for, right? So, and then, I did that for probably, I don't know, months. It felt like it was probably, I don't know, at least probably 5 or 6 months. And then, of course, with the whole river of time thing, I just kind of fell out of the habit of it. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months later, I went back and found the journal and blew the dust off of it and opened it back up again. And I was pleasantly surprised of how many of those prayers had been answered. And I won't say that they were, kind of sort of answered, or maybe if you hold your head funny or shine the right light on it. No, I mean, in my words that I spoke, this is what I mean, and I ended up getting those kinds of answers for it. So that was a pretty big deal. And again, there's another idea for a complete podcast episode that I could end up doing. So yeah, so let's keep digging in here. In my past, throughout the years, most of the things that I'm praying for are some kind of a hang-up around career growth and providing for family, right? That's really what most of my hang-ups have been around, right? Okay, God, so I need you to come through with this business deal, or I've applied to this job or this company, I'd really like an interview, or I got the interview, I'd really like the job, right? So a lot of my hang-ups there have been, not hang-ups, pursuits, I guess is probably the better word. So a lot of the pursuing that I've done, the asking, the praying, have all been around job and family and whatnot. So again, what I've found some relief in here over the past, again, probably 3 or 4 months, is digging into a couple other books that were new to me. They're not new to the world, of course, but new to me. I'll show you one here, that shameless book plug here, Deeper Experiences of Famous Christians. Now, this book looks old because this version right here, I think, was printed in 81. I believe the book is, for the most part, out of print. It's definitely out there on the used market. You can find, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and put a link or two down in the show notes, so go grab it there. But what I like about this particular book, again, just kind of going back to jobs, career, and family, after the book goes through the very basics of like the New and Old Testament folks, there, it picks up somewhere around the 1400s. One person in particular that it's talking about is one of these older saints here, Girolamo, and I am going to butcher this, Girolamo Savonarola. This guy had dedicated his life to going out and advancing the kingdom, and some of the historical account here of the issues he was having in his career. He just kept pressing in and pressing in and pressing in, and he had this deep conviction about this message that he wanted to go share. And he was, even at the time, it was just amazing. He was basically being beaten by the prosperity gospel of his day. So it talks about this other person kind of in an adjacent town who was also in the pastorate at that time, and had this kind of I don't know, it was just more of an easier message to hear, is about the best way that I can put it. And the crowds were flocking to the easier message, and he had more of a difficult message to hear. So anyway, but the long story short is he just doubled down on his conviction, and it cost him a lot. And the story does have a good ending. I won't spoil it for you. I'll definitely encourage you to go grab it. But in going through and thinking about people back in the 1500s who were dealing with things like, their version of the prosperity gospel and how that was playing out back there and how it was affecting a career and all that, and again, following a call and things not working, and that whole dark night of the soul, that's nothing new, right? I mean, great Scott, you can go back and look at the Psalms. Like, at least a third of the Psalms are all about the author being unhappy and saying how much he can't hear God, and God, why have you removed yourself from me? I can't hear you, I can't see you, I can't feel you, right? So in a strange way, I guess, and I don't want to say misery loves company, but to know that what I'm feeling right now as far as this disappointment goes and how much I've been leaning in, some of that pain is eased a bit by knowing that I am certainly not alone in this. I have to admit, it's been quite head-turning to realize that, oh, wow, so all that hardship stuff, that's not just Old Testament. Oh, wow, so maybe some of the stuff that I've learned maybe isn't 100% true. Maybe it's a good way to keep people in the seats on Sundays. I don't know. But I feel like I'm having to realize that this whole Christianity thing, I'm really having to unlearn or rethink a lot of what I have gathered in the evangelical circles here from the 90s up through today. This has been very different. Life is way more about formation than it is convenience, right? So as I dig into some of the older books here, and again, there's many others that I would love to show you, just don't have the time yet. I think it was Tozer, one of the books that I was reading from A.W. Tozer, talked about just the good old-fashioned notion, are you praying to know God, or are you praying to get something from him? Well, talk about completely turning things on its head. 99% of what I pray for is to get something from God, right? For lack of a better term there. So, am I praying to know God? Wow, okay. Maybe I should give that a try, because I don't know that has been part of my church-going experience over the past 30 years has been praying for relief from anxiety, praying for wisdom, right? That's what I've been taught. So this idea of praying to know God rather than get something from Him is okay. That's refreshing, and yeah, I should give that a try. So that's been very good. So anyway, again, folks, I really am what's the right term here? Convinced that by digging through some of the notes here and wanting to make notes and wanting to get this episode out in time, that I've probably uncovered at least another 4 or 5 episodes that I would like to do on this whole idea of formation, spiritual formation or whatnot. That's now becoming a really big topic for me, because my brain is wired to, I want faith to work, right? I want to know how this works. And for a very long time, as you've picked up by now, I just can't say that, wow, faith has been working for me, right? And it's been hard. It's been very demoralizing at times. And then to go back and to realize that, okay, if I start looking at this through a different lens, maybe formation is the right way to look at this. Wow, how would that help me anchor myself to God more so than being disappointed when I claim a verse and exactly what I want doesn't work out for me. So again, lots more to share there. So I really, really, really appreciate you being here. And as you well know, this is a new channel. I would greatly appreciate comments. I would greatly appreciate subscribers. So any kind of feedback you guys have for me, positive or negative, I'm open to it. So feel free. Again, my name is Jason Owens. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Deepwater Labs podcast. Take care.